Clay Bradley's, that's an interesting question. I think this might be the last one because I'm going to have to go home. Um, Clay writes, Bill, you said that you hate conspiracy theories. However, do you have a favorite one or one that makes you laugh, i.e., birds aren't real? Um, is that an actual conspiracy thing? Uh, it's an interesting question. Very few of them make me laugh. Most of them make me, you know, cry. Um, I'm trying to think whether or not there is anything out there that I just find amusing. Flat Earth gets close to it, but it's still more. It's still more tragic and heartbreaking than anything else. Just the fact that there be that many people, uh, and and this does lead to an interesting discussion, Clay. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a video out there, and I saw it from a guy who debunked it. It's like a black astronomer debunked this video written by some kind of black artist. And the black artist was talking about um, all these. Here is evidence for why the Earth is flat. And when he listed off this string of evidence, it's like you just look at it and you just think, that's it, really? That's what you got? This picture, you can see that the clouds go behind the sun. That's the thing, all of these things are, when you get right down to it, they're all built on such thin, wafer thin, tissue thin arguments and constructs. Here's a picture where it looks like the clouds are behind the sun. Yeah, but they could be in front of the sun too. You have no way of knowing because they're translucent. And here's a weapons pod on the belly of this 757 that's about to crash into this building, 767. Well, where is it in the frames before and after? And it's a digital artifact, but if you're right, if it's a weapons pod, show me the 20 frames before it and the 20 frames after it. They won't do it. So there is, I think the thing that bothers me about conspiracy theories so much, Clay, is not so much the theory. It's just I don't understand the emotional propeller of them. I mean, I do. I mean, I know what they are. It's a desire to stand out. It's a form of virtue signaling, really. It's intelligence signaling, anyway. You believe that John F. Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald? I do, and yeah, I do. I think that's the best explanation. I don't think there's any evidence for any other explanation. How could you be so stupid and so naive? This comes back to this thing I've been thinking about a lot too, which is we're products of our culture, and if you watch enough mystery movies, you begin to realize, or action thrillers, you begin to realize that every single one of these has a twist at the end, and people have come to believe that reality has a twist too. And we wait for the twist, but there is no twist because life is not that interesting. That's why you pay to go into the movies instead of coming out of the movies. You don't pay to get out of a movie, you pay to get into a movie. And the reason you pay to get into a movie is because the world inside of the movie theater is more interesting than the world outside of the movie theater. And that means that writers have to use their imagination to make things more interesting than they are. Um, and that's that. So the more of this that you consume, the more of it gets put into your brain as learning heuristics, and that's why there's so many people who don't trust anybody. I mean anything. Um, but of all the things out there that really scare me, it's not AI, it's none of this. It's just the fact that people are above the law. It's the fact that Hillary Clinton is free today, and the fact that I'd feel better if somebody were to bring charges against her and have them be thrown out, serious charges. The fact that there doesn't seem to be anything happening at all um, uh, is it's just heartbreaking. Um, Astronerd said, if you've stood in the window of the Texas School Book Depository, you know that Lee Oswald was the only shooter. I have, and I agree. I was there with Kim Dutoit, who's a big weapons guy. And There is no second shooter. There's no need for a second shooter. There's no evidence of a second shooter. None. And Kim Dutois said it's practically an impossible shot. This is an interesting little piece of thinking, and then we're going to go home. And I've heard this from other people too. I said, what do you mean? He said, do you realize how hard it is to put one bullet into this guy's back and then another bullet into the head? It's virtually impossible. And I said, what makes you think you have to reproduce his shots? You don't have to reproduce his shots. You just have to hit the guy. You're not trying to shoot through the bullet hole that Oswald put there. You just have to hit the target. Yeah, and people say it's an impossible shot. I've heard this from many people. I've stood there. Many of you have. I've stood there. It's not an impossible shot. It's a rather simple shot, especially given the fact that the limousine has just made a left-hand 90-degree turn and is moving at 4 or 5 miles an hour. And furthermore, it's mostly receding. You don't have a super high, kind of cross track that you have to lead for. No, it's nothing to it. So anyway, I think the general rule for these things is if there doesn't need to be a reason for it, if there doesn't need to be a reason for the conspiracy, then I don't believe in it. There's nothing that has, there's no part of 9/11 that isn't explainable. There's no part of the Kennedy assassination that's not explainable. There's no part of the moon landing that's not explainable. And if you say, well, yes, okay, so the reality was there, but maybe this happened too. It's like, why? You just, if you say there's a second shooter, but Oswald was the first one and he did the main shooting, it's like, why? Why would you do that? If you're trying to kill the president and you're employing a second shooter, 2 shooters is a conspiracy. 1 shooter is a lunatic. Why would you do that if you can get the guy killed with the one guy? So anyway, I think that's it. I'm just going to take this because it came up in the comment section. I'll get through this pretty quick here. Martin Archer with the Heinlein question. Did you ever read any Heinlein? Yes, I did. I don't remember you ever once mentioning his name. He's the original and genuine conservative libertarian sci-fi author, immensely influential. If you haven't read anything by him, I highly recommend you do, and start with his juveniles, what will be called young adults nowadays, which were written primarily for boys but also with girls in mind. I read a fair amount of Heinlein. The first thing I read was Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah, John Galt just put it up there just ahead of me. Do you grok? It's funny. I woke up this morning thinking about that word. Isn't that a strange coincidence? Hadn't thought about that word for 30 years. There was a time when I was in my teens or in high school where people would say, I grok Spock, or I grok this, or I grok that. And it's like, but that Stranger in a Strange Land was interesting. Time Enough for Love was the thing that really put the hook in me. That idea about immortality. I think that's Time Enough for Love. And you just start an account and you put $10 in it and let compound interest, get you there. And Lazarus Long. That was really fascinating. The idea. I think that's. Did he say the word anagathics there, or is that from something else? But anyway, I like those very much. And I have to tell you, I read Starship Troopers, and the book is fantastic. It's absolutely great. And this, this movie treating the whole thing like it's some kind of a joke or parody. Do you want to know more? The whole thing. Service ensures citizenship, or something like that. That is a profoundly good argument that he's making there. It's a really good argument, and it deserves a serious hearing. I think I got to be careful about this because I don't want to be misunderstood. But there is a sharp edge to Heinlein and to Ayn Rand that I don't necessarily agree with. The reason I say that is only I 100% agree with what they're saying. And I think you could make a pretty good society if you gave somebody with some compassion and some understanding of human failings, you gave them just building blocks from Ayn Rand and Robert Heinlein. I think you'd have the best society possible in the world. Wouldn't be perfect, but nothing ever is. But yeah, Starship Troopers is great science fiction, among other things, and it's got so much really important stuff about what are your responsibilities and what are your freedoms and all of it. Yeah, I have read him, and I don't talk about him very much. I guess I don't talk about Ayn Rand very much either. I guess. You see, the thing, I don't know what you call the percentage of precious metal in ore. I guess you call it pay dirt. But there's an awful lot more metal in a bucket full of dirt that comes from Robert Heinlein than there is that comes from Ayn Rand. I think 95% of everything that she wrote in Atlas. Well, that's not that much, but I think you could cheerfully, easily cut 75% of that book, and not lose a single element of what made the book great. I remember they got a paperback or something, and at the end of Atlas Shrugs, Ayn Rand has John Galt give a. It's honest to God, and I'm not making this up. It's something like a 65-page monologue. Seriously, no joke. It's just like a 65-page monologue, and that's just not a good way to get across such an important message. Because when you're on the 5%, it's as good as anything I've ever read. It really is. It's not just as good as anything I ever read. It's profoundly, incredibly enlightened philosophy. But anyway, that's that. So it's about 7:30 here on the West Coast as we record this, and I'm going to go home and we're going to go out and get a Christmas tree. And I hope you all either have one or are going to get one. And if you're one of those people that are living by yourself, as I did for virtually all of my life, I would recommend you go out and get a Christmas tree. I did it for many, many years when I was alone. And some people think it's still, that makes you feel more lonely. I don't think so. I think if you're feeling lonely and kind of, left out at Christmas, and I know what that's like, believe me, I know what that's like. Then I would recommend you go out and buy a Christmas tree, and I recommend you just go out and just hang out with some people someplace, some kind of Christmas party. It's next Thursday, so I don't think we'll be doing a Stratosphere Lounge then, because I'll be setting up my various motion detectors and bear traps for that fat bastard when he comes down the chimney. Didn't give me the right color of bicycle when I was 6, and I'm never forgiven him for it. Woody Fool says, if you're feeling lonely, ask others to join you at Christmas. I don't want to, because this is a long, long subject. It just kind of flew in my head at the last minute when I thought about getting a tree. Get yourself a tree, and Christmas is. I found that Christmas with my own tree alone was less lonely than Christmas without a tree alone, and those were not good times at all. Christmas is Wednesday. Conceivably might be able to be. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not. And if you are one of those people, by the way, this is just advice from the heart, really. It really is just sincere advice from the heart. If you're one of those people that are alone and you're going to be alone for the holidays, I cannot recommend this highly enough. You don't need an invitation. You don't need a recommendation. You don't need anything. Find yourself either an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. You think you're going to be surrounded by drunks, but you're not. You're going to be surrounded by really, really good people some of the funniest and best people I ever met. And even if you show up on Christmas Eve, you walk in the door, they will make you feel like home because people made them feel like they were coming home. There has never been, I don't think there's ever been a 12-step meeting ever, anywhere, that didn't recognize that whoever's coming through that door is hurting real bad. And you don't have to have gone. You don't even need to have a alcohol or drug problem. Just go. Honestly, I had a lot of fun in the 2 Christmases I spent with my Narcotics Anonymous addicts, and just being able to go out and have other people there. And if you're one of these people listening to this and you don't have a family or you're by yourself, not only are you going to run into people there, you're going to run into people there that know what it's like to be alone for Christmas. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. Honestly, if you start feeling yourself slipping into that black pit, just check the internet and find the nearest 12-step program. If you're younger, probably Narcotics Anonymous might be for you. If you're a little older, then Alcoholics Anonymous probably have more people like you. But I had thought that I would see nothing but drug addicts and stoners and drunks and stuff. But I just found some of the best people I ever met. Really, really good people who were hurting a lot, and genuine warmth. It's not pretend. When you come in there and they say welcome, it's not, and they say come on back when you leave. That's not pretend, and it's not salesmanship. It's not advertising. They really genuinely mean it. And you may find yourself finally with some people who understand what you're going through, and who knows, maybe the beginning of you finding your way out of that hole, the way I did. And I spent pretty near half a century, I would say, on and off, thinking that this just was never going to get better. And then suddenly it did, it just did, just got a lot better. I met my beautiful wife and spent the last 3 years just actually happy, which I didn't think was possible. So it can get better, but you gotta help. You gotta help it get better. So if you're one of those people, please take my advice. You won't regret it, and you should know that I'm thinking about you at Christmas, and so are all the rest of the people here in the Stratosphere Lounge. I know what that's like. It's not fun at all. So anyway, for the rest of you out there, Merry Christmas, and for those of you who may not be having a Merry Christmas to you too. It really can get better. It does get better. People can point you in the right direction, but you got to take the steps. But yeah, so Merry Christmas to everybody. I hadn't realized that. I thought it was next Thursday night, but have a terrific Christmas, and for our Jewish friends, have a terrific Hanukkah, and you enjoy yourselves and have a wonderful time until the trumpets sound, in which case you're going to be up Schitt's Creek. But in any event, no, it's great to have everybody there. Looking forward to seeing all of you in Miami, as many of you as you can get there, and we will see you in. I'm actually going away with Natasha for 4 or 5 days, so I may not be back the week after that. I may do one next Thursday because I don't think I can be in town for the next one. But Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Merry Christmas, and don't let any of this stuff ruin your Christmas. Christmas has been there, and that magic of Christmas is not an illusion, no matter what these filthy swine have to say. All right, that'll do it. And no snarky post-game message on this one, just because I feel like it's Christmas, and so time to go home and wrap up the presents. And that'll do it, I guess. It's kind of feeling kind of like I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my friends. It's Christmas, so you guys have a great time out there. And if I don't see you next week, and I don't see you until 2020, which seems unlikely, but if I don't, Have a great holiday, great Christmas, great New Year, and we will we'll have a lot of work to do in 2020. But we always have a lot of work to do. That's something to be thankful for. Okay, thanks. Good seeing you guys. Have a great Merry Christmas and a great holiday. And we'll see you next time here on the Stratosphere Lounge.